If I told you that a team scored only 98 runs in a T20 cricket match, you'd probably assume they just got completely blown off the park, right? Like a total non-contest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're so conditioned to anticipate these massive, like 200-plus run shootouts where batters are just teeing off from the very first ball.
Right. But what if I told you that defending those mere 98 runs was enough to trigger a complete psychological meltdown on the field?
It completely flips the script on what we expect from modern cricket. It really does.
And that's exactly what makes the match report we're looking at today so fascinating. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a brutal, really low-scoring thriller in Bristol. This is between the West Indies and Sri Lanka in Group 2 of the Women's T20 tournament.
Yeah, and the West Indies did eventually win by 5 wickets, but, we aren't here to just read you the scorecard.
No, definitely not. Our mission today is to pull apart the actual anatomy of a tense run chase.
Yeah.
We're going to figure out the exact mechanisms of why certain elite teams just completely crumble under pressure, while others somehow find a way to thrive when the walls are closing in on them.
In the context surrounding this match, it's really the crucial first layer here. This wasn't just some mid-tournament exhibition.
Now, the stakes were huge.
Exactly. For the West Indies, they were riding this huge wave. A win here would be their 3rd consecutive victory, tying them for first place in Group 2 with England. And in tournaments like this, tying on points means your standing comes down to net run rate.
Which basically means it's not just about winning, it's about the margin of victory.
Right. Every single run matters.
It adds this hidden secondary layer of pressure. You aren't just trying to cross the finish line, you're trying to sprint through it to boost your math.
Precisely. And for Sri Lanka, the situation was just dire. A loss here severely damaged any realistic chance they had of advancing.
So before the coin is even tossed, you have 22 athletes walking onto that grass, knowing their tournament lives are just hanging by a thread.
The tension isn't just a byproduct of the game, it's practically baked into the pitch itself.
I feel like it's almost like playing a high-stakes game of chess, but, in the middle of a hurricane, raw power just takes a backseat to precision.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
Well, to understand the sheer anxiety of the chase later in the game, we really have to look at why that target was so low to begin with. Sri Lanka got completely caught in a trap that, honestly, the numbers say they should have seen coming from a mile away.
Oh, the West Indies coaching staff clearly did their homework. I mean, if you pull up the data since the last T20 World Cup, Sri Lanka has this glaring vulnerability.
Spin issue, right?
Yeah, they've averaged just over 6 runs per over against spin bowling.
Wow. Just over 6.
Yeah, and at the international level, that isn't just a weakness, it's a structural flaw.
I want to pause on that because I'm trying to picture how a team actually attacks that flaw. Is it really as simple as the West Indies just saying, hey, let's bowl all our spinners today?
Well, it's more about how you deploy them, specifically in the power play, because the power play is usually when batters want pace on the ball.
Yeah, they want the fast bowlers steaming in.
Exactly, so they can use the bowler's own speed to ping the ball over the infield restrictions. But West Indies captain Hayley Matthews, she just flipped the script.
She opened the bowling herself, didn't she?
She did, with off-spin. She deliberately took all the pace off the ball, forcing Sri Lanka to generate their own power.
And the pitch conditions completely amplified that strategy. The sources describe the Bristol surface as tacky. For anyone listening who might not be familiar with, the granular physics of a tacky pitch, what is actually happening to the ball when it hits the turf?
So a tacky pitch usually has a bit of underlying moisture holding the surface together. It's not a hard, flat road where the ball skids onto the bat smoothly.
Okay, so there's resistance.
Exactly. When the ball pitches, there's extra friction. It grips the turf. It hesitates. It essentially slows down for a fraction of a second before actually reaching the batter.
Which just completely shatters a batter's timing.
It fractures it entirely. Think about it. If your muscle memory is trained for a ball arriving at a certain millisecond, a tacky pitch means your bat is swinging through the hitting zone before the ball is actually there.
And Matthews just exploited this masterfully. She didn't overcomplicate things or search for miracle turn.
No, she just bowled relentlessly neat lines and lengths. She eventually took 3 wickets for just 15 runs. She let the pitch and Sri Lanka's statistical anxiety do all the heavy lifting.
Okay, let's actually unpack the biomechanics of how that anxiety played out, because the top order collapse was surgical. You have the Sri Lankan superstar, Chamari Athapathu, going for a pull shot and literally dislodging her own left bail.
Yeah, that was a crazy moment.
I just don't understand how a tacky pitch makes an elite player essentially hit her own stumps. Isn't that just a terrible batting error?
I mean, it looks like a terrible error on a highlight reel, but it's a direct result of the physics we just talked about compounding with pressure. Athapathu reads the length of the ball out of the bowler's hand.
Her brain says, short ball, pull it.
Exactly. She transfers her weight to her back foot and commits to the swing based on a normal trajectory.
But the ball grips the pitch.
It grips and it holds up, so her bat is already coming around horizontally, but the ball arrives that tiny fraction of a second late.
Oh, so instead of hitting the sweet spot,
The ball takes the inner half of the bat, or the sticker, and she drags it directly downward onto her own stumps. Her early commitment, which was forced by the hesitation of the ball, is what killed her.
that makes so much sense. It's not just swinging blindly, the micro miscalculation of physics. And we saw similar miscalculations across the board.
Oh, everywhere. Vishmi Gunaratne gets a leading edge. Again, her bat is closing too early because the ball isn't coming on.
And she pops it up for that incredible, out-of-the-sky catch by Matthews.
Yeah. Then Harshita Samarwakrama gets undone by extra bounce and hits a cut straight to point. Imesha Dulani gets caught at mid-on by Chanel Henry.
And suddenly you look at the scoreboard, and Sri Lanka is reeling at 24 for 4 during the power play.
The engine room of their batting lineup is completely dismantled.
It raises a really interesting psychological question for me. Is this like a pitcher in baseball throwing nothing but curveballs because they know the batter can't hit them? At what point does it stop being about the physical pitch and start being a mental block?
It becomes a compounding effect. T20 cricket conditions batters to attack. But a tacky pitch demands extreme patience. You really have to wait on the ball.
And when you're sitting at 24 for 4, panic sets in.
Exactly. Panic and patience simply cannot coexist in a batter's mind. They start fighting their own statistical demons as much as they're fighting the bowlers.
So with the top order totally decimated, somebody has to stop the bleeding, because a 24 for 4 start doesn't happen in a vacuum. It forces the rest of the batting team into a terrible dilemma.
Right. Do we try to attack and risk being bowled out for 40, or do we dead bat everything and end up with a score of 80?
This is where the concept of the lone spark emerges, right? One player decides they have to carry the entire psychological and physical weight of the innings.
Enter Nilakshika de Silva. She walks to the crease and basically tries to single-handedly drag her team to something resembling a total.
And she scores 30 runs off 26 balls. Now, to a casual observer, 30 runs doesn't sound like a mammoth T20 innings.
Not at all, but in the context of this specific match, it was monumental.
It kept them in the tournament for another hour.
It really did. The entire Sri Lankan innings only managed 3 double-digit partnerships overall, and Nilakshika was the anchor for 2 of those crucial ones.
She built a 34-run stand with Kavisha Dilari, and then a 23-run stand with Kauya Kavindi.
And because of that stabilization, Sri Lanka managed to scratch their way to 60 for 3 in those middle overs.
I want you, the listener, to just think about the physical and mental toll that takes on a person. Imagine you're at work, and your entire team drops the ball on a massive presentation.
Oh, that's a stressful thought.
Right. You have to do all the research, write every slide, and deliver the pitch yourself. You can keep it together for a while, but eventually, from sheer fatigue, you're going to stumble over a word.
That is such a good comparison.
And tragically, that's what happens to Nilakshika.
Yeah.
She decides to take on the fielder at deep square leg and stumbles. She gets caught.
And we have to analyze why she took that specific risk. Was taking on the boundary rider at deep square leg a tactical error, or just the desperate move of a batter running out of partners?
When you're the only one finding the middle of the bat, the pressure to accelerate falls entirely on your shoulders.
Yeah, you start attempting shots you'd normally never play because you feel like if you don't find the boundary, the innings will just stall completely.
And the second she fell, the resistance just evaporated. The West Indies spinners, Ashwini Munasar and Karishma Ramarak, just locked the door.
They squeezed the life out of the tail. They both ended up claiming 3 wickets each.
Sri Lanka managed a measly 15 runs in the final overs, losing 7 of their 10 wickets to spin. They were bowled out for just 98 runs with 2 balls left.
The West Indies executed their blueprint perfectly. But the second the innings break happens, the entire psychological landscape of the match inverts.
Right, because 98 runs is practically nothing in T20 cricket. Defending a sub-100 total means you cannot afford a single mistake.
You need absolute flawless execution in the field. Every single run you save is oxygen. If you only have 98 runs in the bank, you can't go dropping loose change.
But Sri Lanka didn't deliver perfection. They delivered absolute chaos. The match report uses this fantastic word to describe their field setup: profligacy.
Yes, wasteful extravagance.
Despite that tacky pitch-making batting just as difficult for the West Indies, Sri Lanka practically gift-wrapped runs.
The statistics from the second innings are genuinely damning for an international side. They gave away 23 extras.
In a chase of 99.
I know. Handing the opposition 23 free runs is disastrous. What's worse is that 13 of those were wides.
See, I have to push back on that because these are elite athletes. Bowling straight is day one stuff. I can understand a batter misjudging a spinning ball, but how does an international bowling attack suddenly bowl 13 wides?
It comes down to overcompensation driven by sheer panic. Picture trying to carry a full cup of scalding hot coffee across a crowded room without spilling a single drop.
Oh, you're so terrified of spilling it that you stiffen up.
Exactly, your muscles tense, and every tiny twitch of your hand is magnified. That's what happens to a bowler defending 98.
They're gripping the ball too tight.
They feel like they have to force a wicket with every single delivery. Instead of just bowling a disciplined line and letting the pitch do the work like Hayley Matthews did, they try to bowl slightly faster or spin it slightly harder.
And that extra effort alters their release point by a fraction of an inch.
Right, and suddenly the ball is drifting down the leg side for a wide. We connect this to the bigger picture. They stop playing the conditions and start playing the scoreboard.
And that panic infected the fielders too. They dropped 3 catches. And brutally, 2 of those drops happened immediately after a wicket had just fallen. Plus, they blew several clear run-out opportunities.
That concept of a dropped catch after a wicket is devastating to momentum. Momentum in low-scoring games is a highly fragile, invisible force.
Every wide and dropped catch releases the pressure valve for the batting team, right?
Exactly. When the batting team is chasing a tiny total, their anxiety is actually quite high because one mistake feels magnified. So when a bowler finally gets a breakthrough, the fielding team's confidence spikes.
But when you drop the very next batter,
You completely release that pressure valve. You instantly tell the new batter, don't worry, even if you make a mistake, we probably won't catch it. It alters the brain chemistry of the batting team. It gives them permission to breathe.
here's where it gets really interesting for me. This is like a tennis player serving double faults at match point. The West Indies were actually stumbling, but Sri Lanka wouldn't let them fall.
They engineered their own demise through indiscipline, certainly, but the West Indies still had to physically walk through that open door.
And they very nearly tripped on the threshold. That brings us to the final act of this chase. Because it wasn't a smooth victory lap at all.
Not even close.
The West Indies actually started okay. Matthews and Deandra Doughton put together a solid 28-run opening partnership. But then the middle overs got incredibly tense.
Sri Lanka's Kavisha Dillari found her rhythm, eventually taking 2 for 22.
And the West Indies slipped drastically from a comfortable 36 for 2 all the way down to a terrifying 70 for 5.
We really need to contextualize what 70 for 5 actually feels like on the field. Half your team is sitting back in the pavilion. You still need 29 runs to win.
In normal conditions, a team can score 29 runs in 2 or 3 overs.
Right, but when your recognized batters are gone, the pitch is gripping, and the fielding team is screaming at every delivery. Needing 29 runs feels like needing 150.
One more wicket and Sri Lanka likely wins.
Exactly. If they expose the tailenders there, the math heavily favors a Sri Lankan victory.
The panic was palpable, even just reading the match report. But amidst all of that chaos, one player stood absolutely still. The hero of the hour for the West Indies, Stafanie Taylor.
Oh, she was phenomenal.
While everyone else around her was losing their heads, Taylor, who finished the game 35 not out, by the way, provided an absolute masterclass in composure.
Game management is an overused term in cricket, but this was its purest form. She did exactly what a veteran anchor is supposed to do.
What does that practically look like when you're out there? How do you manage a game when half your team is back in the dugout?
You manage risk mathematically. She didn't try to win the game in 3 swings. She skillfully spun the strike, using soft hands to tap the ball into the gaps.
Securing singles and just rotating the strike.
Exactly. By constantly swapping ends with her partner, she kept the scoreboard ticking, which prevents the required run rate from climbing. And she never allowed the Sri Lankan bowlers to settle into a rhythm against one specific batter.
She leaned entirely on her vast middle-order experience to avoid any mishaps.
She did,
Yeah.
and she wasn't just surviving, she was highly alert. When Sri Lanka made an unforced error and bowled a no-ball, giving her a free hit, Taylor pounced. She smashed it for 6.
The only 6 of the entire game.
Yes. And hitting that 6 sends a very specific message to the bowling attack. It proves she could punish mistakes when offered. It forces the bowlers to remain cautious instead of relentlessly attacking.
It's like she was the designated driver of the run chase.
The designated driver.
Yeah. Everyone else at the party is losing their minds, making terrible decisions, spilling things, and she's just sitting there completely sober saying, all right, I'm getting us home safely. Nobody touched the steering wheel.
That is a brilliant analogy.
And the climax of the match has this incredibly painful poetic justice to it. Taylor, the one person keeping the West Indies together, is crucially dropped at mid-wicket by a frantic Sri Lankan fielding unit.
Just a heartbreaking moment for Sri Lanka.
And after surviving that drop, she calmly hits the winning runs, securing the chase at 99 for 5.
It perfectly encapsulates the fundamental difference between the two teams on that specific day. Sri Lanka let their pressure turn into physical panic manifesting in extras and fumbles.
While Taylor took the immense pressure of a collapsing run chase and turned it into extreme, laser-like focus.
Exactly.
So if you're listening to this, the core takeaway from this match in Bristol is really profound. This game wasn't won by explosive power. It was won by targeted strategy, exploiting that statistical spin weakness and icy, unwavering composure under intense pressure.
It leaves us with a really compelling thought to ponder, too. In this modern era of T20 cricket, fans and analysts are just obsessed with the spectacular.
The massive 200-run shootouts and giant sixes.
Right. But does a grinding, muddy, low-scoring, mistake-filled match like this actually reveal more about a team's true championship DNA and psychological resilience than a flawless, high-scoring blowout?
That's a great question. Surviving a psychological war of attrition tests a team in a way a blowout simply never could. Anyone can look like a genius when the sun is shining and you're cruising, but it takes a completely different kind of greatness to keep your hands steady when the room is on fire.
It really challenges you to rethink what makes a truly great sporting performance.
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for the deeper stories and the underlying mechanics behind the headlines, and we'll catch you next time.